Hello and welcome to Detective Comics, the Batman-themed podcast from the Comic Crush. I am the Chief. I am your host. Hemen will be joining us in just a second. Today's episode, as voted by you guys, the theme of today's episode is Bat-Hamm. What can it mean? What can it mean? Hemen, what can it mean?
Wait, Batman doesn't have a pet pig, does he?
He doesn't. There is the Batmite, which is the dimensional imp that he conjures up, or has conjured up, and was a feature of Morrison's tenure as well, ever so slightly. But yeah,
there's Ace as well, the Bat-Hound.
There's Ace the Bat-Hound,
yeah,
but no pig. There is also a Bat-Cow in Morrison's run. I can't remember what they call the cow. Oh man,
I'm sure it might just be Bat-Cow. No, I just picture Robin. I just picture Robin with this cow, just sort of looking at Alfred like, "Yeah, it's my Bat-Cow." What?
It is. It was a thing of Damien's. Oh man, I can't remember now, but it does pop up. Ace the Bat-Hound. Ace the Bat-Hound actually comes from like previous Batman lore. I think it comes from like before Morrison. It's part of the, I want to say, the 50s and 60s.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah, it's it basically I actually know this. Ace appeared because I've been on a little bit of a crypto journey after the Superman.
Oh yeah, excellent.
So basically, crypto launches in like mid-50s. That's obviously so successful because it's a cute super dog. 2 months later, they give Batman a dog. So it is literally in the 50s that Ace is introduced.
Oh, amazing! That's amazing. I never realised it would be like a response to the success of crypto, because like when like the teen sidekicks all have an interesting history, which I actually will save that for another episode when we actually do start talking about the teen. Sorry, already 2 minutes in and we've gone off on a fucking tangent. Right, so Bat-Hamm. We are going to be talking about the works of Sam Hamm. If you don't know who Sam Hamm is, he wrote or co-wrote the 1989 Batman movie and was then invited to write a comic called Blind Justice. Or he pitched, sorry, I'm just getting the graphic novel in front of me. He pitched a story called Blind Justice. And then years later came back to do the Batman 89 spin-off comic book, which is set in the universe of the 2 Tim Burton films and follows on from Batman Returns. We're going to get to that a bit later. We're going to do Blind Justice first. So Blind Justice, in case you've not read it, is a complex and fascinating Batman story. Arguably one of my favorites. I've mentioned it depending on what order you're seeing the episodes in, of course, because you guys pick the order the episodes got played in. I've mentioned it dozens of times on this podcast, and I think on one episode Emmett just says to me, why don't we just do Batman Blind Justice, since you mentioned it so many freaking times? And so we did. Hemen, first time read for you, I'm assuming.
It was, and to be halfway through reading it, I think I finally understood why you're excited about these sort of DC finest books being published. Yeah. And I have started I've just started buying them myself because I noticed that Blind Justice, I think, is due in July next year.
Yeah.
And there's so many great stories. We've read quite a few stories from this period that I frequently said they're so hard to find. Like I've had to use like the apps and stuff. But the fact that they are reprinting them, yeah, this is fantastic. So yeah, this was the first time, and you've caused me to buy a new line of books. So thanks for that.
You're very welcome, obviously. I love making you spend money, especially on comics. Blind Justice came just after the Batman movie, or I think as the Batman movie was due to come out, because it was all nice at the time with the 50th anniversary of Batman. It's the same period that the many deaths of the Batman that we've done in another show is is from. In fact, I think they were running concurrently.
Okay.
So literally, Detective that month would have been the first part of Blind Justice. Batman that month would have been the first part of the many deaths of the Batman. Now, sorry, I'm just looking. The comics are up there, and I'm just trying to see if there was a particular volume that I had, but I don't think I do. Anyway, so Sam Hamm was sort of tasked to come up with a Batman story, and just as far as I'm concerned, just blew it out of the park. I genuinely feel like he blew even the comic writing competition at the time out of the freaking water.
And this was his first comic he'd ever written, right? Or...
I think so. Yes, I did. It's funny. It escapes my mind now, of course, because I read it all of about 2 weeks ago. But I read an interview with him recently where he was discussing having, written this, and I've got a feeling it was his first comics work. And I think actually, rather than being invited, if I'm remembering correctly now, he happened to be talking to the DC guys as they were making the movie, and went, "I'd really like to write a Batman comic," and they were like, "Oh yeah, let's do it." So Sam Hamm, screenwriter by trade, he carried on writing movies after this, and then came back to do the Batman '89 comic, which we'll get into. But I think he he knocked any other recent Batman story into a cocked hat with this. So should we encapsulate it as much as we can for the audience?
Yeah, I definitely feel like he hadn't really written comics up till now, but was clearly a fan of Batman and sort of instills almost all of the core things you would expect in a Batman story, and just create something really satisfying.
And it's even the way the issues were done were kind of unique at the time, because he did 2 extra length issues that bookended a normal sized issue, and I believe in the extra length issues they had a lot of bonus material, which was sort of writings on the Batman by famous people. So they had Stephen King come in, they had I can't remember who else now, but because I've got the issues and I've got the book, and the book only has some of that material in. They had some great art in there, like pin-up art, and I'm really, really hoping, fingers crossed, because I don't think it's ever all entirely been reprinted. I hope that when that DC Finest hits the shelves next year, it's got all that material in, because there's some stunning pin-ups in there. So to kind of bring the audience up to speed, the story is that a woman has come to Gotham searching for her long lost brother. They were both orphaned and then split apart many years before and sent to separate foster families and lost track of each other. She knows he's been in Gotham. She knows he's worked for Wayne Industries, but he's now gone missing. Unbeknownst to her, he is now homeless on the streets of Gotham, can't remember who he is, can only remember things up to a few months ago. And he's living homeless on the streets. She gets the runaround at Wayne Industries, but then through a private detective gets a meeting with Bruce Wayne, who begins to investigate himself, and starts to uncover this sort of labyrinthine conspiracy.
And I have to say, because she tries to get into Wayne Industries, and she's sort of given short shrift by a character who is covering things up. But I do love how the investigator gets her in front of Bruce Wayne, which seems to be check her out, which is just which was chef's kiss. especially when later another character sort of starts alluding to that Bruce Wayne is just trying to show off in front of this hottie, and he reacts so angrily to this, like, how dare you?
But there is an element of that, like there is an attraction between them, and that comes into play. We should say there's other characters, of course, we got to bring up, but what was interesting to me about this was that it kind of plays with dream and memory, because it starts, as a lot of Batman comics start with or feature, Bruce's nightmares concerning the death of his parents. And this is quite a major feature of Batman stories. And I think there's even one of the stories later on, one of the many arcs, where he sort of chides himself because he hasn't been thinking about his parents and hasn't been dreaming about them as much. And also what it kind of brings up is that the Batman is an inevitability. You know, he dreams of the Batman killing his parents. And I quite like that stuff. The art is by Dennis Cohen, who is an amazing artist. His art style is very unique. So there's this kind of weird rigidity to it that you can see here, especially in the faces. I find his faces and his lines and his sort of kind of dynamic speed lines really fascinating. You know, and it's interesting. Yeah, Batman comes into the dream and shoots Bruce's parents, and then it's Batman that gives him the respite from the dream, because the bat signal goes up and he has to go and kind of attend to that. And I find that quite interesting. And a lot of the book plays with memory and dream, as we learn a bit later. And you know, Bruce and I forget her name. Do you remember her name?
It's Jean. Or
Jean, yeah.
Referred to as Jeannie, but I think it's Jean. Who is, again, I think it's that Reardon who works at Wayne Industries. He refers to her as an Okie bimbo, which I'd never heard before, but apparently that's what people from Oklahoma call themselves. But I guess he was using it as some kind of slur. But so basically they were saying, you know, she's not from the town, she's she's a country bumpkin.
So the Okie from Muskogee and all that kind of stuff. And it's, I don't know if you kind of hear that. It's weird. I can't remember what movie I was watching recently. It was a movie from the 80s. I think it was an Eastwood movie. And you kind of hear all these kind of expressions and phrases that you wouldn't necessarily hear now. And comics are probably peppered with them. And I think America has its kind of very own unique language. And there was a lot of things reading comics when I was growing up that I just didn't get, because they were kind of very American phrases. And it's only years later where one day I'll be sitting there and it will just something will just pop into my head and I go, oh yeah, that's what that meant. And it'll be something from 40 years ago. I also like
hope that kids growing up in America reading sort of Stormwatch and the Authority had a similar kind of thing, thinking, what on earth is Jenny? What does that mean when Jenny Sparks is insulting people, or Constantine or something? I hope there's that same disconnect of what on earth are they uttering. I do hope so.
I think part of the appeal of that, having those guys in, though, was that they would write, like the British invasion, they were writing very much in a British voice. And I think that was part of the appeal, is them not kind of toning it down. I love this scene, by the way, because they're out ostensibly on a date, and he just ditches her on the corner.
He's probably more brutal than I've seen for a while. He doesn't even try and come up with an excuse. It's like, oh no, sorry, I'm double booked.
Yeah.
Can you get out of my car? It's just.
And they're literally on their way to dinner. Very callous, very callous. And then you see the bat symbol in the background. I love that. That's great. Also, concurrently with all this happening, there's a series of kind of strange crimes going on, where a gigantic masked individual who's wired up to some kind of machinery is pulverizing, literally pulverizing people. There's that great scene at the beginning where Batman goes to the morgue with Jim Gordon, and he says, look, you might not want to, you know, this is going to be gross. And he lifts the blanket off a tub. He says, why is he in a tub? And it's like, that's the only way we can contain him, because the guy's literally been pulverized. So his skin is still intact, but everything inside his skin is not. And even Batman reacts with shock. And I really like that, because it's not often you kind of shock the Batman, but there you go. He's kind of horrified. I don't have the panel.
In fairness, I thought it was a bit much. I was like,
it's very gross.
What is this? And it's close to how I feel with the heat we're experiencing.
Yeah. As well. Yeah. So, folks, we are. Although you'll probably see this in the sort of kinder climes of September. We're recording in sort of June, July, August for this, and it's just been unbearable. So, yeah, we're expecting to melt away at any seconds. If you see me dabbing my forehead with a towel, that'll be why. So what's happening is this character, this Bone Crusher, is appearing and committing these very low stakes robberies, pulverizing anything that gets in his way with these kind of sound waves. Not for the first time in this book, if you are reading it with the knowledge of Bane, so if you're reading it now looking back, and you look at this book with the knowledge of Bane, of Nightfall, and Jean-Marc Valley, the sort of second Batman that takes over for a while, this will also have this kind of weird familiarity. Now, I read it in the order that it came out, but this almost feels like a dry run for Nightfall.
Yeah, I was definitely having that sort of weird, almost Matrix-like deja vu. Like, wait, and because I had to go and look and say, wait, I thought, when was Bane invented? And so this does predate Bane, but
but only only by a few years. So it's quite a close run.
The other things you were touching on, definitely comes into the story later on, which is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and in fact, this whole book just delivers kind of twist after twist, and it does it very well. So Bruce takes on this Bone Crusher who commits suicide rather than be captured, and then reappears again later at another crime, dressed the same way, with the same equipment, everything. Which of course baffles Bruce, baffles the Gotham police. Also across town, Roy is having like these kind of blackouts where he thinks he's fighting the Batman. Eventually Roy is located, taken to Wayne Manor along with Jeannie, who's staying at Wayne Manor with Bruce. And together they begin to unravel this conspiracy in Wayne that's taking place within Wayne Enterprises. And what I love about it is, Bruce confronts the guys that are doing it. Like, just
I love how angry he is. It's like, like, how is my own company being used against me? Just like incredulous. Which, how could Batman let his own company work against him?
I mean, you see the scene where Batman comes across Roy in the homeless shelter, and Roy freaks out, which I loved. And and the kind of bone crusher in action there, just absolutely devastating. It's actually a great. I mean, the device itself is kind of interesting stuff. There's a guy called Kenneth Harbinger who's like a scientist, a crippled scientist that Bruce has engaged to do work for Wayne Industries, and he's invented this device that allows people, and it's where the book. Okay, so like this comic is devoid of a lot of gadgets. There isn't the Batmobile. Like the Batmobile, I don't think makes an appearance in this.
Okay, yeah.
No Batplane, no nothing. And I think the reason why it's so devoid of gadgets is because it's got this one complete science fiction idea at its heart, which is this device allows the wearer to project their minds into someone else's body. As long as that person is chipped. And
because they find a biochip in
yeah.
That's
and that is such a hokey sci-fi idea. Also, one of the things I found fascinating, I was just thinking about this today, right? So you've got the Harbinger is, whilst not the lead villain, he is ostensibly the villain, or he is engaging with this villainous cartel that's running things. And he is a crippled villain. He's in a wheelchair. And it got me thinking about characters like Professor X. And I remember having a conversation with a friend once. Like we were trying to convince another friend about just how mad, in a way, comic ideas were, and how a lot of those guys writing comics in the 50s and 60s and would not have got work anywhere else. Like the book industry would not have gone, publishing industry wouldn't have gone, oh yeah, it's a great idea, we'll have that. Because it's like, oh yeah, I want to bring you, he's a psychic and he's in a wheelchair. Oh, so he's the villain. No. He's the good guy. He's going to run the whole team of other guys with bizarre powers. What are you talking about? And this kind of brought me back to that thing of, like the cripple, almost like a Bond villain. And in fact, this is a very Bondian kind of thing. Yeah, sorry. Off on a bit of a rant there. But, Harbinger is a kind of a throwback villain almost.
I love the name as well. It's like, just in case you're in any doubt, like,
yeah,
he's definitely going to be a villain. Like, just in case. Like, I can't be bothered to hide this. He's definitely a villain. That's not the twist of my story.
And in fact does go on as the story progresses to become even more of a threat than the cartel almost. And
I do enjoy. I think it's around this point in the story that you were saying that Roy and Jean come to live with Bruce at his mansion. I love how he and Bruce bond, which is just in the gym, just doing weights, just a couple of bros. And I mean, when I was reading that, I was just laughing, like, oh, like 80s, 90s culture, whatever, not realizing it's kind of Chekhov's gun, the knife in the thing from Jaws. Like, it is actually important to the story later. But at the time, it just amused me of like, yeah, Bruce is just going to take this guy who's been on the street for 6 months and just, we'll just pump some iron, just bond.
Well, Roy is I think he's supposed to be a gymnast, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's kind of his thing. But also what's kind of interesting is this, Bruce would have been between Robins here.
Right.
Because I've got a feeling this is post Jason Todd's death.
Yes, no, it is. Absolutely.
But only marginally. Like I can't remember because I don't have the separate issues.
Well, I believe year 3 is shortly after this, so it must be.
Right, yeah. And so he would have been maybe wanting a sidekick, if we can allow, because obviously it's a weird thing. It's like with comics, you can't. It's not like watching a movie where you can project the possibility of what the characters are thinking. because in comics it's like, well, the event is either happening or it's not. It's either been drawn or it hasn't, because the people aren't moving, and you're kind of inside their heads and inside the dialogue and inside all these private moments. Therefore, can they really be thinking things? Like, you know, is it a waste of time to sit there and look at character and wonder what they're thinking in a comic? Because you don't wonder, do you? Like, it's there or it isn't. It happened or it didn't. And I guess there's a weird element of that. So we have to presuppose that you can and say, would he have been wanting another sidekick? And he gets more than the sidekick, as we find out. But I love the fact that he goes to see Reardon and says, right, I know about this cartel. I know what you're doing. You're going to stop doing it. And Reardon just goes, nah, we're not doing that.
But this part of the book, I think, is like, I think it's when I sort of realised that this was more than just a fun story, and it was about to sort of take a turn and be very quite clever. When there's like all this build-up of, well, look, we've been watching you for the last 15 years. We know all your secrets. We know, and you know, I think Bruce is like visibly sweating, like what? And then, like, yeah, when he unveils what the conclusion they've come to, I actually howled with laughter, because they don't say you're Batman, which you're expecting. It's something completely different. It's absolutely brilliant.
He's a communist.
Yeah, he's a commie spy.
So to place this in context, I think it would have been 88 that this came out. No, it was 89, sorry. And so the wall hadn't come down just yet. So it would have been still a big deal to accuse someone of being a communist spy. So March 89 was the release date of this. The movie came out in the summer. So by the time this finished, the movie would have been just arriving. And he is a communist, according to Reardon and the cartel. And he knows, he has that great flashback where he can like, no, it's all fine. I'm Batman. Like, which of course he can't say.
Is that the court case flash?
Where he's standing, he's in the dock, dressed in batsuit, kind of chill. It's great.
It's like, hey, he said to the judge, hey, I'm Batman. Yeah, it's a great thing. And then it almost sort of snaps back to Bruce going, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah. And of course, the other fascinating thing about this, for those of us that are kind of, you know, in terms of movie connections, this even stretches all the way to Chris Nolan, because it introduces Henry Ducard. It's his first appearance. And Ducard is a kind of manhunter, come arms dealer, come bounty hunter that Bruce has trained with many years before.
Suggest a bit of a bastard.
Yeah, a complete bastard. Like, actually, one of the more ruthless bastards. Yeah.
It's a really enjoyable character, actually. Like, you know, he's this master manhunter, you know, deductive genius. I think when Bruce hears that Ducard is on his way, he's like, oh no, he's going to work out on Batman. Like that's his first fear. Like, Ducard is just so brilliant that there's no pulling the wool over this guy's eyes.
Which of course he does eventually, but it takes him a long while to get there. And the reason it takes him a long while is because, like, and I loved this as a gambit. I thought this was great. The cartel arranges to assassinate Bruce, and instead cripples him, putting him in a wheelchair. So we're back into the Nightfall arena. But the police start putting around the rumor that Batman's still out there taking down criminals, and they're still switching on the signal every night, which again I loved. I loved the fact that they could, that the response would be, no, we have to make it seem as if he's still out there.
Because doesn't Gordon, this is the story where Gordon is suggesting we attribute some of these arrests to Batman. and things. Yeah, it's brilliant because I think before this, such a beautiful moment between Gordon and Bruce when he's basically saying, "I know you're Batman. Like,
Yeah.
I've been called as a character witness. Is there anything you want to maybe tell me? Is there, you know?" And Bruce is just, don't know what you're talking about. Just shoots it down, and you can tell that Jim really wants to know, but maybe there's like that 10% where he's not quite sure. He just wants that confirmation. But I love that.
Yeah, I think it's great. Many years later, there is a scene. I think it's post No Man's Land where they're arguing, and they're in Jim Gordon's garden. Gordon has his back to Bruce, and Bruce pulls off the mask, and he's going to kind of reveal himself, but Gordon says, "I don't want to know. Like, I'm not interested in knowing." And I love that. And Bruce's opinion is that Gordon is too much of a good detective not to have figured it out. But you're right. That is a great scene. It is because it kind of leans into all the unspoken things about them. Because remember, like, this is the man who encouraged Gordon's daughter to put on a fucking costume and and go and fight crime, which got her crippled in the long run, and there's a lot of interest in subtext there. Also, you do get that great stuff where his attorneys are questioning him about, just what he was doing all those years as he travelled across Asia, and he was learning him with all these grandmasters who also happened to have taught, terrorists, and things like that. And it's just that stuff
like
is
Russian
great.
Special forces and things like that.
Yeah. And this Chung Li character is really the only one you see apart from Ducard. Like, they could have really gone to town on this.
Yeah.
And shown you so many, but that some of that was kind of spaced out in other issues. But he really is. He keeps kind of talking about the search for the self, and I was just trying to find myself. It's just
I love how I can't remember if it was through sort of. It's kind of like kung fu, acupuncture, and then just finding himself. He manages to staunch a bullet with the power of his mind.
That's great.
Like, it's ridiculous, but I completely buy it. I'm like, yes, Bruce has been on such a journey that he's mastering all kinds of crazy things here. And I love that it opens up this for other writers, because like you say, we only see that guy and Ducard, like. And in other stories, we've seen some other, people he's learned from. I do love that it kind of opens it up for, well, who else has he sponged info on?
Oh, completely. Like, I mean, there is a thing, as we talked about in other episodes, where he went off and joined the FBI for a while and started that sort of training and studied law, studied this, studied that. There's a great issue. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just because you were talking about Ducard and Nolan, I just had one small tangent, which was because I saw something a few weeks ago that really wound me up. Because I remember seeing Batman Begins in the cinema.
Yeah.
Because we're old. And someone on, I think it was Reddit or a postage board, they were clearly young. They said, guys, at the time, when you first saw this film, did everyone know that Liam Neeson, isn't Ducard in the film?
No.
And there was all these comments saying, yeah, we all knew who he was. And I was just sitting there like flabbergasted, like, liars. No. I remember sitting in the cinema just absolutely, like, when that reveal happened later on, because I just presumed it was kind of on like borderline racist stereotyping of just, was it Ken Watanabe, or I can't remember who they picked as Ra's al Ghul. And I just figured, it's just weird stereotyping. They've picked this guy to be, that character. And then I thought it was absolutely genius when the reveal happened. I was absolutely gobsmacked in the cinema.
Yeah.
Like,
I absolutely loved it. I did not think for a minute, because I knew that there was this character called Descartes from Batman lore,
sure.
and therefore was like, oh yeah, okay,
Well, of course,
Henry Descartes. And I didn't know it was going to be Ra's al Ghul. I don't think I'd read much on the film before
it was a
it
different
came
time.
out.
You could avoid spoilers.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
Good luck keeping that now, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the twist, just as I enjoyed the twist of him coming back at the end of the movie, because I didn't know he was going to come back either. Like, it was a genuine surprise. And you could have, I guess, you could have figured it out from the beard, because the distinctive sort of curled side Ra's al Ghul beard. But you'll also notice that Watanabe and several other characters have that beard throughout the movie.
Do you know what? I always think it's one of those things that if I'm not enjoying a film, I would notice things like that, because my mind is wandering. I think I will probably have, but that film moved at such a pace, it didn't give me a chance to work out its tricks, because I was just enjoying it. I guess, maybe it is completely obvious in retrospect, but because you're enjoying it in the moment, you're not stopping for a second to sort of pull it apart.
Yeah, and I think that is the key with a lot of movies and comics. In fact, you're not sitting there putting the logic apart. But
that goes back to this this sort of mind control device. You were calling it a hokey thing, and I almost wanted to say no. It's perfectly logical, because I was really enjoying the story. So, I didn't care. It was like a hokey device, because it was like, yeah, it makes complete sense.
I always forget that this is, because this is about the second or third time I've read this, but I always forget that this is an element of this book. And also that Bruce, it's so strange. There was a kind of fashion for this period of showing Bruce fuck up. And he chooses to use the device with Roy as his proxy Batman. I love that scene as well, where he's jumping over things, and there's that bit where he grabs the chimney stack, and he's like, oh, he thinks he's in shape.
Like you say, he's like a former Olympian or something, or Olympic level gymnast. But I love the whole Batman is so much more than just your regular person. Even an Olympian, who is doing Batman stuff, is struggling with it, because only Bruce can truly Batman.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I love it. Again, it's the building up. It's the 50th anniversary, and they were building up the myth, and introducing characters like Descartes really helped with that. As you say, a complete bastard who's offered to testify that Bruce is a communist and a spy, in exchange for money and being pardoned in some of the countries where he's gone out and committed terrorist crimes. I love that idea as well. It's like he knows. He definitely, whilst it takes him time to figure out that Bruce is Batman, he definitely knows that Bruce isn't a communist and a spy. But he's willing to just say, yeah, give me the money. That's fine. And I don't think, he doesn't even know that they're going to try and assassinate. Well, actually, it's not the cartel that assassinates Bruce, is it? It's Harbinger, isn't it? Isn't it Harbinger?
Do you know what? I'm not clear on who tried to kill him there, actually, because they start to. I feel like the villains start to sort of. They're moving to different ends. They're not all clear of purpose.
Oh no! In fact, they don't. It's this guy called T-Bone, who's one of the homeless guys that Roy knew, but it's been kind of taken over by Harbinger. He's ostensibly dead, but actually isn't. He's just moved his mind to another body, and he takes over T-Bone, I think, and has him assassinate Bruce, because someone even asked Jordan at you know, while the assassination's happening, did you authorize this? She's just like, no. It's great stuff. I mean, the whole thing with Roy comes to a tragic end.
There's a moment before there which I thought, you were saying like Bruce just fucking up. Like, he is fantastic when it comes to meeting women and wooing women. But he can't maintain a relationship because, you know, he's got his secrets. But the fact that he tries to break up with her while he's, you know, he's in the mind of Roy when he's sort of using Roy's body. It's insane. You know, it's like, it's classic. He says to Alfred something like, I wasn't brave enough to do it myself.
But it is very callous in a way, and I think there is a ruthlessness to him that kind of doesn't always get explored. And him actually kind of, well, I mean, he doesn't approach Roy with the idea. Roy approaches him with the idea and says, let me be your Batman, as it were. So a bit of that's on Roy. And his death is an accident, but nonetheless still Bruce's fault. But of course, then he has to go and tell Jeannie that, so first of all, I'm Batman, and second of all, there was this mind control stuff. Thirdly, it's a bit of bad news, but your brother's been splattered all across a railway track. It's really grim stuff, and I'm quite surprised they kind of go as far with the drama of it as they did.
It is a real tragedy. Like, even though we're kind of chuckling at the real. It is a relentless tragedy, and it does lead to, again, a second really touching moment between Gordon when he visits Bruce, and he almost offers him like the opportunity to retire, doesn't he? He's like, you know, God, if I was involved in that guy's death, I wouldn't be feeling too great about now, you know, these kind of illusions. But it almost feels like he's saying these things as a friend rather than a cop.
Yeah, and I think there is an element of that, and the recognition what Batman has done over the years is actually really nice between them. So yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the better Batman stories to come out of I would say, the entire 80s. And still remains, in a lot of ways, largely unknown. And I don't know why. Like, it's not like a ton of people seem to...
You know what? I've got a theory, and it's mainly to do with... so I would have been too young when this came out. I would have been 7.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago. And I know it has been reprinted over the years.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stories that, unless it's year 1 or the Long Halloween, it feels like they're not in print. And they just come and go, like, you know, every so often. You just see things just reprinted and people go mad and get really excited. And I've got no idea why. And it's because it hasn't been in print for like 10 years. And so unless you knew, or I guess unless you've got access to the app and you're just reading everything, you know, these things can just pass you by.
So like I said, I had the original issues, which I haven't gotten rid of because they've got the bonus material that I like. I got it in like this, one of those hardcover Eagle Moss DC Legends of the Batman collection. But it is coming out, as you correctly pointed out, DC Finest. It's the second Batman release of the year for 2026. So, you know, hold your horses, folks. It will be coming out. and he's definitely worth picking up. I don't know what else they're going to print in that one.
No, that hasn't been announced just yet. It's just those. But if I was a betting man, I think the book before it is Death in the Family, and it seems to map perfectly.
Yeah,
between I think the Killing Joke book and this. So
because I think that Death in the Family is going to be everything Jason Todd up to the end. So it's even going to include the cult, which is really strange because they've just brought the cult out in hardcover and trade paperback. And annoyingly, I've just brought it.
Great. Yeah, I think it's great they've got they're putting it in. I love the cult, and I too have that deluxe edition, but I don't begrudge them. Do you know what I find fascinating? And this is my advert for DC Finest without them paying us, so no more free advertising for them. But reading the year 1 and year 2 volume is absolutely eye-opening because I always, year 1's probably my favourite story. But it's really eye-opening just reading through it because it's the way these books are collected are essentially just how they came out at the time. So you'll read through all these other stories, and suddenly you get to year 1, and then it goes elsewhere.
Yeah.
And wow, this really was a light and day difference in story versus and structure and everything. I think it's an incredible time capsule to see what lightning in a bottle some of these stories felt amongst all these other things that are happening.
I mean, it's what makes year 2 also stick out a bit like a sore thumb, because year 2 then took place in detective,
right,
and has an entirely different tone and feel to year 1. Like year 2 feels a lot more expansive. It feels a lot more like it's so weird because if you look at TV at the time those things came out, those books sync up nicely with television. So year 1 is Hill Street Blues. Year 2 definitely has the more expansive soap opera feel of LA Law or something like that. Year 3, I don't know, we'll get to that. Year 3 is a difficult one for me. But we'll have to talk about that, I'm sure, next year, because that's out soon. That's being reissued soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is probably one of my all-time favorite Batman stories. So Sam Hamm comes back. Are you done with this? Sorry, I don't know.
I am. I think. I would second. This is probably. I think, like I said, this is probably one of the reasons I'm just going to dive into the DC Finest books of this era, because there seems to be so many great stories that haven't been regularly reprinted that I just want to uncover and just read. And this is a lot of fun, and this is exactly the kind of Batman that I enjoy, as well as having, like you say, it has the hokey sci-fi element on that shouldn't work. Like if you think of,
it absolutely shouldn't work.
But it is, and I do wonder, is James Cameron a fan of this story? Because it feels like it could have launched Avatar in a way, but yeah, no, I love how versatile Batman is, and it's amazing how someone has written, the screenplay for the most goth Batman at that time.
Yeah.
So it's a real gothic film. And then this does not feel like, I wouldn't have guessed it's from the same writer as the movie. It's like a completely different vibe. And I love it. It really shows how flexible Batman is in media, like how both are just so different, but they're both definitely great Batman stories.
And also you can also kind of see how this influences Nolan. And then I think as we get into the next book, we'll kind of see how Nolan influences Sam Hamm.
Hmm.
Because I think there's definitely sorry, I'm just switching off my phone to stop it from draining on the internet, and see how that then kind of comes full circle. So Batman 89, I don't know what kind of spurred this on, because I don't
Flashpoint.
think it was
No, not
I
Flashpoint.
don't.
Sorry, the Flash movie. The fact that Michael Keaton was in that film. Do you think that
Yeah,
like
it
corporate
actually
synergy
probably
at play?
was. It probably was, and I think they were kind of queuing it up for the fact that Batgirl was due to be released
Oh
around
yeah,
2024. So this was written by Sam Hamm, drawn by Joe Quinn. I can never say his name properly. Quinones. So Sam Hamm comes back to write this, which is spilling out of his ideas for I guess sequels to the Batman film. Interesting enough, I'm not sure Sam Hamm wrote Batman Returns.
Okay.
I can't remember. I think that was just Daniel Walters who did that.
Well, I think my homework before I read this was to watch the original Batman film. Which I'm going to say now was not required, and you're right. It seems like it's cribbing from Batman Returns more. So if you're saying he didn't write Batman Returns, that's just leaving me really confused. But anyway,
I'm unsure. He might have written the story, and then Daniel Walters came in to rewrite it, because movie credits are a kind of a bit of pot luck. So quite often, so when you look at films, the way scripts are credited, if you have two screenwriters and it says written by or screenplay by Paul and Hemen, say for example, and there is an ampersand between our names, that means we were in a room together and we worked on it together at the same time.
right. Okay.
If the word "and" is between our names,
I punched
that
it
would
up.
mean that would mean you would have rewritten me.
Okay, I'm with you.
There is a long history of like arbitration, what they call arbitration, where you have to then, if successive writers come on and you still want credit for this movie that you wrote and you think there's enough of your ideas in there, you can go to a process they call arbitration, where the Writers Guild will convene like a panel and they will go through all the drafts of the script and they will make a ruling on who gets credit, because it's very important for writers to get screenplay credit. A lot of them actually prefer to have story credit.
Yeah, so that's why it said story by, even though they've already been credited with the screenplay. Okay.
Yeah, so because that means they'll get continued payouts over years, and it is to do with money and ideas and things. Quite often writers will go uncredited, but they'll get paid a significant amount of money to not have their names on the picture, because what you're giving up is residuals on the film. So I don't know what the credits are on Batman Returns, but certainly this draws from it. What's interesting about this? So it picks up the story of Harvey Dent as played in the film by Billy D. Williams. Bruce Wayne is a Michael Keaton lookalike. They've done an interesting job of trying to get sort of a Michael Goff look to Alfred. So everyone kind of looks roughly like they should, but there's also there's some interesting stuff happening in this visually, because if you look at the Batman movie, as you did, that is a kind of Gothic architectural Art Deco fusion. But this book ain't.
Yeah, that's the thing that really, like the art style. I do like the art, and this is not me criticizing the art, but yeah, this is not, even though it's classed as Batman 89, this isn't I guess, Tim Burton and his team's vision of Gotham.
No.
That sort of Gothic playground and larger than life architecture. This could be any city, but it's which I thought was fascinating. Like they seem to have focused more on, like you say, the actors, like Keaton, Michelle Pfeiffer, etc.
And it's great to see Billy D. Williams, because I think Billy D. Williams kind of dropped off the radar between, at least for me, between Empire and Batman. And I was actually shocked when I saw him in Batman, because I was like, shit, it's Billy D. Williams.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting idea to have him play to Harvey Dent. I think the idea was that in the sequel they would go back, and I think even he's given an interview saying, I was supposed to be the villain of the next one, but they decided not to do that. And I think he was royally pissed off about it, quite understandably, because that would have been a massive payday for him. It would have been a career revitalization. It would have been, it probably would have meant so much to him. And although he couldn't have argued for the same sort of deal that, say, Jack Nicholson got, which is still to this day one of the most lucrative deals an actor has ever got in the history of film. Where
he deserves every penny. Having watched it again, he deserves every penny, because he did not have to give that performance.
He managed, so Jack Nicholson managed to negotiate money for films that he wouldn't even be in. And it's just like, you clever bastard. And he also managed to negotiate, which would have been ludicrously lucrative at the time, because of the amount of stuff they pumped out, a piece of the merchandising. Beautiful. Which, you can bet Michael Keaton certainly didn't get. And he's the one wearing the fucking bat suit. And certainly, the film would not have been Billy D. Williams, Michael Keaton. It would have been Michael Keaton, Billy D. Williams, and Billy D. Williams. But this kind of explores a sort of what if. But what's interesting about this is it kind of looks at the timeline of the comics and the sort of modern attitudes, and ejects them into the world of Batman 89.
Yeah, I think in some places it does work, and in other places it didn't quite work for me. But I think the Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, and actually doing something with it rather than it being, say, colorblind casting, I thought was fascinating. Like, actually, like, still to this day, I'm absolutely fascinated by every time I read an almost different version or take of Two-Face, that people are still able to come up with a compelling idea that is different than something else I've read. And I think he absolutely does fantastically here with the idea of, like, there's always the kind of joke of that Harvey would be called Two-Face before he's become Two-Face. And I like here that you've got the idea that, the community of Burnside, so African-American community, thinking that he's turned his back on them to an extent because he's, going for DA and what have you, and and not quite looking out for his community because he's a big shot in the city. So he's, two-faced to them. But then when he does try and make a stand against overzealous policing, shall we say, the police literally call him two-faced, because they're like, "Oh, why are you siding with them rather than us?" And I love that. That there's just sort of like multitudes of and I was quite impressed that sort of went there, because you didn't have to.
No, and that's what's interesting about it, and he's almost a kind of, from the, if you want to take it from the idea that this is a sequel to the 1989 Batman movies, it fails, because what it tries to do is it injects a social consciousness into a world that cannot support it. Like, those two movies, apart from Billy D. Williams, pick out the major black characters in those films.
Mm.
There's none. They are extremely white. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a thing, and it is part of those movies. They're staggeringly white, those films, and also they're actually very lightweight movies. Yes. Particularly the first one. They're kind of confections in a way, and now I think that when you look back at Batman '89 and Batman, Batman Returns, you can almost look back at them as the way we might do as the Batman '60s TV show. There's an element of that where they become quite campy, and so I don't think that world supports these ideas. However, I think that what kind of happened is that by the time this came out, you'd had 4 Batman Tim Burton universe movies, if we want to call it that. You'd had 3 Christopher Nolan movies, and I think Sam Hamm's looked at those Christopher Nolan movies and gone, yeah, I'm going to inject a bit of social realism, even though, again, Christopher Nolan is not a director known for putting in characters of color to his films. Like, they've until Tenet, they're virtually fucking non-existent in Christopher Nolan's films, really.
Yeah. There I was trying to. No.
Yeah, I feel confident making that assumption, and I'm not the first one to make it. I don't. I think it's a very, and I'm not like I understand why, given the culture that he comes from and the culture that I would come from, why you wouldn't necessarily inject colours of character into your films in that way. But I think also he responded to that criticism when he made Tenet. Like he like that was his almost like him going, okay, back off because I'm going to make the lead character black. Also, I do think, just as an aside, I think Nolan's a massive Tory. I think he always has been. I think he's a massive Tory. And it's interesting now to listen to Nolan. I know obviously he's in the middle of making a film, so to be fair to him, but to listen how silent he is now that IMAX have announced their partnership with an AI film generation company. So Mr. Fidelity and keep it real when you make films hasn't said a fucking peep. So like that's quite interesting. So I think in a way a lot of his stuff is bullshit. I'm not always I've gone off on a tangent now. I'm not always
gone off on a tangent, yeah.
Like I think his politics way, but I think that what's happened is Sam Hamm has looked at those films and gone, hold on, you can inject realism into this, and I'll make it into something different. But I still don't think the world of Batman '89 and Batman Returns.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't quite mesh, does it? Like
kind of.
Yeah, I think it works. I think the aspect of Harvey works really well in the story. And it's really well done. I think an element that doesn't quite work for me was, due to Batman's presence in Burnside, a man ends up getting shot by cops. This guy had been shoplifting nappies, etc., for a baby. So it's like, trying to make. I understand, but it kind of feels like a Twitter hypothetical than like a real situation. And I think I understand why it's there for the story point of view, because you've got there because it leads to other interesting ideas. Like I say, like the duality of Harvey trying to balance the community he's come from with the politics he's working in. Bruce knows he's messed up, Bruce messing up again. And Alfred pointing out, well, there's a way you can fix this, not being Batman, but you can throw some Bruce Wayne money around and maybe try and help them. And that stuff is really interesting. The actual kind of awkward Batman accidentally getting someone shot didn't quite work for me. That felt, because I felt like that would really live rent free in his mind more than it does in this story. He kind of glosses over that a bit too quickly.
Yeah, and you know, it's Gotham again tipping over into the kind of ludicrous costume crime. You see here, like he's dealing with the clown gangs that are kind of remnants of the Joker, and then kind of has to go into the. It's almost like that gets left behind. It's almost like you start off with, yeah, this is a sequel to Batman '89, and then that gets left behind because Sam Hamm goes, no, hold on, there's this other thing I want to do, that's a bit more kind of serious, and I kind of quite like the fact that he does it. And we're introduced to this character Winston Drake, I believe he is, right? Which is an interesting amalgamation of two characters. One obviously is Tim Drake, the kind
of course it is. Why didn't oh my god, I feel so stupid. Why didn't I put that together?
Yeah. So Tim Drake's an interesting character because he he becomes like a detective and figures out who Batman is, and then decides that he's got to be Robin. This guy is not interested in becoming Batman's assistant.
No.
I think he's also partly a character called Duke. I can't remember his name now.
Yeah, I know.
The guy who becomes the Signal. Yeah. So I think he's meant to be an amalgamation of those two characters.
But I can't believe I didn't see it, because he's working in a mechanics, and you had the whole thing with Tim trying to steal the rims off the Batmobile, haven't you? You've got those connections.
No, that's Jason Todd.
Oh, okay.
Jason Todd steals it. Tim is the one who figures out who Bruce Wayne is.
Fair enough.
There's
too many Robins, and we've added another Robin here. But you're right. He doesn't seem to be interested in being Robin or an assistant per se.
No.
He feels more like the Batman of Burnside, if that makes sense. But
so the idea is that there's these kind of gangs of vigilantes running around Gotham, and they're sort of dressed up as sort of pseudo Batman. Harvey Dent feels like the Batman is actually Batmen, like multiple guys.
Yeah,
which is an idea that's.
I love that. One guy can't do all this.
Yeah, it's great. And he wants to take down Batman because he feels it's Jim Gordon's private police SWAT team unit, and it's not. Of course it is Bruce Wayne. But the fascinating thing is he asks Bruce Wayne for help, and Bruce has to kind of go, yeah, I'll help. And I love that because it just puts him in such a compromising position. But also, I guess his thinking is, well, I can check this out from the inside. I can sort of steer him in the wrong direction.
But I love that. Yeah, like you say, he thinks there's more Batman. I think was it Winston Drake? He doesn't believe that Catwoman exists, for instance. So there's all this, this stuff. There's all this stuff out there. Are these people running around? And like you say, you've got people dressed as Batman. You've got people dressed as Joker gangs. Yeah, the city is slowly becoming a bit more crazy.
Yeah, and he kind of gets caught up in Dent gets caught up in a kind of incident of urban terrorism. Is the only way I can describe it, really, because these vigilante gangs set fire to who actually kind of appear to be working with the cops. There seems to be this kind of corrupt element, thanks to Harvey Bullock, who in traditional Batman law did start out as a corrupt cop and then reforms later on. And they set fire to the garage where Drake works, and Dent gets scarred in that. But I loved the kind of trick that they pull, because issue 2 ends with
I fell
that
for
was
it.
amazing, wasn't it? Yeah,
Like,
I was like
issue
totally
2 ends
some
with
wild
him
direction
face
for the
down. There's a fire. There's a battery with battery acid creeping towards him. It's like, and I imagine reading this month to month, you would have been like, all right, I'll see where this is going.
Yeah.
And then I love that you get the next issue, you start going through there, and it's like Harvey Dent is a hero, and it goes on for quite a few pages of not what you're expecting, and then just the rug being pulled out is just absolute chef's kiss. And I think it really does sort of give you that sense of, you know, why Harvey would snap, more than just, you know, the of being like, you know, disfigured, or oh, he might have brain damage from chemicals or what have you. It's just this idea of, well, this is what you could have won. And I think it's almost phrased as, this is an alternate reality where he's like this hero of Gotham, and like he's smashed Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon's corrupt Batman force and this, that, and the other. He's a real hero. And then he wakes up and, no, something's wrong with my face.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely quite heartbreaking.
And I love the idea that it's presented. So this sort of alternate personality comes out and tells him, yeah, you know what, there are alternate universes, and basically both things, it's Schrodinger's cat. Both these things can be true at the same time. And he's kind of switching between those universes in his mind via this coin. And I love that notion. And that's a big freaking notion for this world to kind of endure. And I again, as a film, it would not have supported it being a sequel to those things, and certainly not being made, you know, all due respect, by Tim Burton, who's kind of got a fascinating filmmaking career that seems to take this really weird turn at a certain point. And I think even he said that he'd spent the last few years coasting as a filmmaker, and then I think Wednesday revitalized his interest in the things that he likes, and he's now kind of, you know, back at it, as it were. I mean, again, fascinating ideas in this. You know, Winston and Bruce do team up. I also love the fact that Bruce's almost overreaction to what's happened in Burnside and the shooting is, okay, I'm going to pay for every kid to go to university, to go to college from this district, which is kind of a great notion, and I like that. But it does smack of the white savior stuff that you know, and that is kind of addressed.
Yeah, the thing that was confusing me, I guess, is this does feel like a young and inexperienced Batman, which again would make sense if you said that him against the Joker was his year one, because that is the start of his career, I guess. Penguin and Catwoman in his second year, and maybe this is year 3. But the likeness of Michael Keaton does look quite old in this, so that really threw me. Of like, is this supposed to be?
Yeah, he's grey. He's got the grey sides.
Yeah, a bit Reed Richards. So I'm a bit confused. Like, there's some really fascinating swings in this book. I don't think everything works, but the things that do, I really enjoyed. Like,
I mean, we also get the return of Selena Kyle, the Michelle Pfeiffer Selena Kyle, which is, she comes in as this sort of almost like a creature from the id, and just starts fucking shit up. And
she is the agent of chaos in this book.
Yeah.
She is hysterical. I think there's one sequence when she's at the computer. Is she in the police station? But she's you know, she's dressed up as a secretary, but she's got her Catwoman mask on, and it's just mad. I just really enjoyed just how absolutely.
She's completely insane. And you know, Bruce is obviously still very much in love with her, and she's kind of making the return after disappearing and presumably dying, or as far as anyone knew, dying in Batman Returns. And I loved all that. And again, it's like, so she becomes almost like the Joker of the movie. She starts to really kind of inject chaos, but her heart's in the right place. She is trying to bring these people to justice.
Yeah. And she schools him on, oh look, the heist you stopped at the beginning of this story wasn't what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Whose money do you think you're protecting? And yeah, I do wonder if there's a bit of rich white liberal guilt at the heart of this story, of it being. That's definitely how it reads in some parts.
Probably is. It probably is. I thought we would get. So I'm just whizzing through images here. I thought we would get Barbara Gordon becoming Batgirl in this, but I wonder if that's something they're gonna take on.
I think there is a sequel to this, but I'm not sure.
There is a sequel called Echoes that I think is kind of due out now, or it's been released. The single issues were delayed quite seriously for various reasons. I don't actually know what those reasons were. I love the fact that we get this sort of almost what starts out as a sort of peace march, but then becomes a race riot effectively. I love how that's kind of played, and how Tim Drake or Winston Drake rather injects. He gives people the tools. They're not weapons. He gives them spray cans and says, go out there and kind of beat these cops at their own game. I think there's some great stuff there. I do feel like some of Harvey Dent stuff is written to be quite Joker-esque. And I didn't really dig that. I just felt like he could be. He was strong enough to be his own villain. And Two-Face is quite an important villain for Batman because of the duality. I
did enjoy his cold-blooded murder of Falcone. That was I found that hysterical. But you're right. Maybe that is a bit more Joker-esque. I don't know. In that it did really make me laugh just how brutal it was, because it is just the classic flip a coin and just shoots him, and I don't think anyone in that room was expecting it. It's quite funny.
And also one of the interesting things about it is like Dent wants to do good. He is literally he intends to do all the things that he was going to do as district attorney. The only problem I really had with the book, apart from the fact that I don't feel like the universe they're setting it in is one that can support the ideas that he wants to do. So it's flawed in that respect. But the problem I had with it is that I found in the second half of the book particularly, and especially in the last two issues, it became very muddled. And at one point, I couldn't really tell who was instigating what thing. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't really tell who was causing what event to happen. And I don't think the action was clear enough. Okay. But that's the one downside for me.
I came away from this thinking, look, it's no Blind Justice, which. On first read of Blind Justice, I'm just like, this is a classic, like stone cold done. This one I found interesting. Like the swings it takes, I think admirable, and some of the things that really worked for me are what we talked about, like just the use of Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent as an identity and doing something with that. The sort of alternate reality flipping of the coin is great. Selina just being mad felt great, and it is an extension of Batman Returns. I love that she'd left some cats with Bruce, and that Alfred really didn't want them. Always one cat.
Yeah, it's the cat he picks up at the end of Batman Returns.
Yeah, and I love that idea. And that Alfred was like, I think when Bruce mentions that Selina's back in town, the first thing he says is, "Oh, and will she be taking her cat back?"
The cat, yeah, because he's fed up with the goddamn cat. Yeah.
So there are some great things. I also think it's an interesting dynamic for the Robin that goes down. I enjoyed all of those aspects, but yeah, you're right in that there are other things that don't quite work, but I think they don't work because he's taken a risk and he's tried to do something interesting rather than like there is a world where you did a very safe story that just feeds into nostalgia, and I don't think he did that. I think he is telling an interesting story that not many people try and do. Like people don't try and put, whether it be politics or sort of modern, the problems you see out your window, you don't tend to see them in comics as much now. So it's interesting that he had a go.
I think you're absolutely spot on there, and I think it was a more interesting story for that, and I kind of was really fascinated and gripped by a lot of that. But again, it's ultimately, I just don't think the world of Batman 89 supports, and that's not a serious film.
Yeah,
you're not watching. It's just not, I don't know. It's not kind of, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed both of these. Obviously, Blind Justice more than Batman 89. But I definitely want to go and read Echoes now.
Yeah, I'm fascinated for what that is, to be fair.
I think that's going to be like
where he says to Catwoman something like, "Oh, don't you just wish we could leave this behind, or don't you wish we could not have a normal life?" And she stares at him like, "Are you mad?" And that's a really interesting dynamic, because usually it's the female character trying to say to Bruce, "Come on, leave Batman behind. You've done enough now."
It's the question that Drake poses to him. Don't you ever wish you could have been normal? And he's like, "Yeah, for a few seconds," and then. So it's interesting that comes back around. I really like these. I think they're both really strong books. Yeah, definitely kind of up there, and I do want to see the Batman 89 universe kind of continue. It'll be interesting. Do you know what would be interesting now is to see someone take on, and I'm gonna get, even though it's not my favorite movie, is to, what I'm gonna say, right?
Go for it.
Is to see someone take on, and take on all the outrageously gay subtext that's in those, or especially in the Batman and Robin. It's not Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. Like,
yeah, so do you know what? Batman Forever, I will stand by and say that is an entertaining film, and for all its flaws, it's good fun. It's like, it's no more, in retrospect, it's no more stupid than the two Tim Burton ones, I think.
No, I think it just, at the time it came out, even though those movies, like, as much as those movies were reviled when they came out, they earned a massive amount of money. They were both hits. And in fact, Schumacher was kind of thinking of taking it, then swinging it and taking it back into the direction of The Dark Knight Returns. And I remember being bitterly disappointed watching those two films. Well, I don't think I even saw Batman and Robin.
I saw Batman and Robin in the cinema.
I gave up.
When did that come out? Because I remember I was
That was
young.
The last one, right? That was the final one. Batman Forever comes.
That was Ice to See You.
Yeah. So that,
and
like,
I think even in the cinema, I was like, this is bad, and I was a child. So
yeah.
But I think in retrospect, if you look at, I guess, how old would have Joel Schumacher have been? He's pulling from the Batman of his youth in that would have been the Adam West 60s. It would have, like, if you look at, I don't know, Silver Age Batman and stuff, and it's all, there is a lot of silly and sci-fi, and we were talking earlier about the Bat-Hound and things. I think he was just probably trying to make Batman sort of fun, which Batman can be fun. It's just, I think a lot of us prefer Batman to be dark and gritty, but you probably shouldn't ignore the fun element that Batman has been throughout the years.
Yeah, it's true, and I think it's a difficult thing to embrace. I don't think I watched those films a few years back. I did an article on Batman Forever, and the article started off as one thing in my head when I pitched it to the editor that I was writing for, because it wasn't for my website, it was for someone else's. And I will actually try and dig that article out, because unfortunately the publication that it was for, the website it's for, has folded. But I think I've still got the article somewhere. But what I ended up writing about is just how gay it is. Like, there is the subtext is ridiculously gay. And what I mean by ridiculously gay is not that gay people are ridiculous. We can all be ridiculous from time to time, but that it's a multi-million-dollar summer blockbuster, ostensibly really for a straight white audience, because that's who they were making films for at the time. And it is not, like, that is not present in the film at all. Like, it's Joel Schumacher was allowed to kind of, I don't know if they just didn't realize when they were signing off on his script what it was going to be like, but it's
you can make arguments for, I don't know, Point Break being like one of the most homoerotic films.
Definitely.
Which I'm sure the subtext is there, and I think what's her name, the director, she's very good. Yeah, she's a very intelligent filmmaker, and maybe that was there, but you know,
I think, I can't remember if it was her or someone else who came out and said, look, it's meant to be Point Break is meant to be a sorry guys, we've gone off on we're on safari now, so you better stick with it. Put on your beige shorts.
I'll finish once you've done this. I've got one anecdote that will pull us back into Batman to finish.
Apparently it's supposed to be a satire on action movies.
Okay.
When I first saw Point Break, I found it utterly ludicrous, and was just like, what the fuck is this? This is terrible. And then as time's gone on, it's become one of my favorite movies. I don't think that'll happen for Batman Forever. Joe Schumacher is and I want to tell you, I just want to get into this, because I was so bitterly disappointed watching that movie, because it was one of my favorite. Joel Schumacher is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I promise you. He made The Lost Boys, he made Falling Down, he made Tigerland, which is an amazing movie. Phone Booth, St. Elmo's Fire, Flatliners, wonderful movies. But he also made those two Batman movies, and I was bitterly disappointed in Joel Schumacher, whom I met once. I met Joel Schumacher once, and he was absolutely lovely, and he was great to talk to. But I think his preoccupations, as all directors do, they push their preoccupations into the movie, and that's what he pushed into that movie. And in years to come, I might go, actually, this movie is brilliant. But at the time, I was just
I'm happy to rewatch them and reevaluate. No. It's been a while since I've watched them, in fairness. But having watched Batman '89, it did give me the hankering to watch Batman Returns again.
Right.
But I was really confused watching the first Batman, in that it is just Jack Nicholson's film. There's not that much Batman. It's mainly Jack Nicholson just eating up. It feels like he consumes the whole film, and I don't know if he hated Jack Palance or it was just a good bit of acting. But there's like the sequence where he sends off Jack Napier and Nicholson's like, "Oh, don't send me, send one of the cronies," and he's like, "No, but you're my number one guy." And then that's the thing that Joker does to Bob, but he really hams it up, and I wonder how much of that is him being over the top Joker, and how much of that was him really mocking Palance. Because it's really,
I don't know.
Quite aggressive. Like, it's really over the top.
Yeah, that film has a fascinating history. There's a great book called Hit and Run, which is about Goober Peters, the production team on that, the two producers, who were like the Simpson Bruckheimer of their day, and how they got Sony to buy into Columbia Pictures, which at the time was seen as, because the amount they paid for it and the kind of deal that they worked out for themselves as to run the studio, was seen as one of the biggest scams of all time. And this book details the history of the 89 Batman movie, and there's some stuff in that is just outrageous. So Nicholson, Kim Basinger was having an affair with John Peters, Barbara Streisand's one-time hairdresser.
Wait, is this the guy that was obsessed with a giant spider for a
yes, that guy.
Right,
it's that guy.
Right, okay.
And I'm not saying anything negative about John Peters either way, because I don't know enough about him apart from those two stories. So they're making the movie. Yeah, they're making the. Oh yeah, that's true. They're making the movie, and it's normal on big movies for the studio to spring for jackets, really nice jackets for the crew, for the key members of the crew. And Warner Brothers were being really tight-fisted about it. John Peters was having an affair with Kim Basinger at the time, or a relationship. They were in a relationship. I don't think she was married or he was married, but they were having a relationship. So Jack Nicholson said to John Peters, "Why don't we pay for the jackets, you and me?" And for the whole crew, it was $180,000 to get these really nice jackets made, these crew jackets, the movie's symbol on and everything, the logos. Gets them made, does the jackets. Jack Nicholson pays for them outright, and John Peters is just like, "I'll give you the money back." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, "I'll give you the money back." So a few weeks went by, and the 90 grand that Jack Nicholson is owed still hasn't turned up. So apparently he walked up to Kim Basinger on the set in front of everybody and just went, "Tell that guy whose cock you've been sucking for the last 6 months that he still owes me 90 grand for those jackets," and just walked off. So that movie was a wild fucking ride. And it's strange. You can't really distill that into these comics. I would like to see someone take Joel Schumacher's universe now and distill, because that would be wild, especially in today's context where we're all more aware of different sexualities and different approaches. It would be fascinating to see a kind of a gay Batman, if you want.
I'd be interested just from a visual thing, because I know it was kind of slandered, but I thought the visuals are actually quite fascinating. Like, it's completely different direction than Burton, but it's another sort of an insane city as architecture in a very different way.
Yeah, and you see how much that then goes on to influence other things, and you know, there is this whole thing of this the city as a character that I think is especially prevalent in Gotham. And sorry, we've gone around the houses of this.
Well, I've got one final thing.
Go for it, please.
Will take us back to Henry Descartes, and that was I only recently realised or heard that line when Bruce falls through the ice and he's sitting in front of a fire, and Henry Descartes says to him, "Don't worry about your arms; they'll take care of themselves. Just concentrate on warming your chest." That's not true.
No,
that's just something Chris Nolan wrote, and he actually says he's worried that that Liam Neeson said that line with such gravitas that he's worried that people think that's true. I thought that was true until I saw that quote of Chris Nolan say,
yeah,
like, oh my God. And there's so many things like that in films, like, I don't know, Die Hard, the whole your toes on the carpet for, you know, to relieve stress. That's not true. That's just so you can have Bruce Willis
barefoot
shoeless to get caught in glass later in the film. That's all that is. But yeah, that blew my mind that for 20 years now, I've taken that as fact. Like when I've been cold, I thought, well, Descartes said, just concentrate on the chest. Fucking hell, man.
Never look to movies as
no. But yeah, so there you are. I was completely taken in by Henry Descartes.
Yeah. I think it goes to the. It's a great character, and I'd love to see more done with that character. But I'd like to see this version of the character, because they have used him again in like the New 52 and stuff, and I didn't at the time. I didn't feel it really worked.
Yeah, I think.
But again, I always feel like I'll go back and look at it again.
I think he recently came back, but I think it was featuring more his son or something.
Yeah.
Son was a villain, and yeah. But yeah, you're right. I don't think they've used that character that much afterwards, and it would be fascinating to see more.
I mean, who knows? So, folks, that's tonight's episode. I feel like you've got your value there, because we've given you a tour of the sexual politics of Batman. We've given you a tour of two great books, Christopher Nolan's policy. So I feel like you can't possibly squeeze any more out of this podcast. Do follow us online at the comiccrush.bsky.social is our preferred social platform. You can also follow on Twitter at the Comic Crush, on Threads at the Comic Crush, and on Facebook just the Comic Crush. Find and like the page there. It's where you'll find all the stuff first. We post all the reviews, comic news, and of course all the stuff from the web shop. There is a dedicated Batman web shop. Do take a look in there. There's some great stories, not necessarily the ones we've been talking about tonight, but there'll be a ton of stories in there that you can pick up and jump into. Remember, I do specialize in complete sets, so you'll be able to kind of get a whole kind of story in there. Hemen, thank you so much. This has been a really fun episode. I really appreciate you taking the time. Yet another 90 minutes out of your life. But thank you for doing this. We'll be back or not next time, depending on where you are in this. Remember, if this episode is coming somewhere in the middle of the run, there's only about 10 or 11 episodes, so you can go onto the socials and you'll find like a quick poll of which episode we should do next. So you pick the theme and then you find out what the books are when the episode goes live the following week. So do take a look at that. But guys, it's been fun having you all on. Drop us a comment, Paul at thecomiccrush.com, if you want to drop me an email to tell me that you hate the show, love the show, or what you've got a comment just about the books, some bit of information we didn't know. There's bound to be tons. Give us that, and we'll talk about it in one of the replies videos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Find us on Spotify and on Apple and here on YouTube. Goodbye, folks. You generally have to say goodbye at the end, haven't it?
Oh,
It's just below.